Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you happen to be watching this. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, I want to spend a little time with Green's essay slash podcast, The Yips, and talk about some of the things that are there that you might want to apply to the definition essay you're writing for class. I also have some quotations from Major League Baseball, where there was an article on the Yips on their website, and just run through things that they did as well. And so we're going to talk about the yips and how defining the yips might be something, might have elements that you can use as you write your own definition essay about integrity or style or happiness. As always, all borrowed images and quoted text are used for educational purposes. I'm just an adjunct professor. I'm not trying to make a buck off of this. One of the things I haven't mentioned before that I probably should have mentioned is think about synonyms. Green does a good job of giving synonyms and some colorful ones: whiskey fingers, the waggles. And then he explains that yips is a better term because of because of his reasons. It's an anxious word. I can feel the muscle twitch inside the word itself. The yips, the twitch, the muscle twitch. I think it's really a good idea to think about what are other things and what's it like, and why are we bothering to define style instead of fashion, for example? Why are we bothering to define happiness instead of joy? Why are we bothering to define uh, integrity instead of honesty? Think about what's unique about the term you're defining and put it in relationship to some of the synonyms for that word and explain why this word is superior to that. That can be part of the argument, that can be part of extending the definition. Formal definition of the yips from Merriam Webster: a state of nervous tension affecting an athlete, such as a golfer, in the performance of a crucial action. It's pretty good, but certainly the formal definition doesn't give us the complete idea of yips, and it doesn't give us the complete idea about why something happens um, the way it does to athletes who are paid millions of dollars to do simple actions very, very well, but they're still simple actions. MLB has a definition, and I think they do a great job of four things. I only have three on the slide, but they do four. Number one, why the definition is important. They take precaution with their definition of the yips because they don't want someone to be perceived as having a deficiency or a liability. Second, there's a negative definition. It's not a mythological plague. There's a second formal definition. Players encounter a mental hurdle that flat out won't permit them to complete one of the game's mundane on field tasks. That works really, really well. And infielders can't find the first baseman's glove on routine throws. Catchers can't execute the simple task of returning the ball to the pitcher. All of that works. One of the other things I think with the yips that you might want to think about with some of the words you have the options of defining is how deep can you break it down? What are all of the elements that make it up? If you look at the picture on the slide, the yip cycle, you begin with the idea of the yips. You have the fear of making a mistake. You want to avoid embarrassment. You over control. The yips return. You fail again. You get embarrassed. Others have seen you fail. You think you're a failure. And then the next time it comes around, it happens again. And it keeps recurring. So, can you break whatever term you're going to use into a bunch of little step-by-step things. That's part of analysis, and it might help make your job a lot easier as you're working to extend the definition. MLB.com gives some spots here where inside the clubhouse, it's one thing, a taboo subject. To those observing, it says predicament. To those enduring, there's a proliferating number of questions. Once again, I think it's important. What's the context you're going to have for each of those things? Because it can mean different things in different situations. For me, and for the essay you're writing, I think the context like this might be best in the intro, along with some synonyms perhaps, but it might be best in the intro. Still, it's always something to think about as you're extending the argument. What are the context? Does the word mean different things in different contexts? Sorry for stuttering there. As I said, I'm not a professional YouTuber, and sometimes I'm just going to make little mistakes, and I'm not going to edit. Also, sometimes the experts can provide the context for you. They can provide the operational definition. In this case, Giambi is not providing an operational definition, but he is extending the context from the previous slide about what it means to a baseball player in the clubhouse. You feel terrible, but you don't talk about it. You don't define it. You don't limit it. You don't do anything about it. The experts can do more than just find the formal definition. Work to make sure that you don't plagiarize, work to make sure you give all the credit you can, but the experts can provide some context as well as just giving us a formal definition. I think that this slide gives 3 or 4 things that are important. There's a context of knowing something abstractly different from knowing it experientially. That again, I think, is important as you're writing your definition. It's one thing in the abstract happiness. It's one thing in the abstract integrity. It's one thing in the abstract style. It's one thing in the abstract delicious. But experientially, what does it mean that something is stylistic? What does it mean that it's delicious? What does it mean to be happy? And then an example of having it in the context of not being able to unknow it. And then an analogy, not of the word the yips, but of the word confidence, which in a lot of ways, for the purpose of green and the purpose of what we're talking about now, is the antonym of the yips. And so the analogy for confidence and the limitations of confidence to solve the problems of the yips, the analogy does a great job of tying things together. And again, experts can offer analogies, and experts can extend the arguments for you, but you can think about your own analogies to extend. This is a very simple one. If you start thinking about how you come down the stairs and think about how each muscle is working, you can't go down the stairs. If you've fallen, you're probably going to think about it. And once you start thinking about it too much, that thought creates more. Analogy, quotation, all of that works to tie things together. I hope that with the 3 presentations since the assignment, everybody's getting the idea that a lot of this is extending things throughout and making sure that we're trying to be as complete, and you're making the argument it's not this, or it's not only this, it also includes X, Y, and Z. So remember, you're extending the argument, and it's happening here on this slide. The stairs analogy, the fact that once something bad has happened, the analogy applies all the time. If you overthink and overanalyze, one thought creates more, and it goes back to the cycle. It goes back to the things in the previous slide about losing confidence, worrying about failing, and then failing more because you overcompensate. Breaking it down into its parts, offering analogies to show how those parts are true, tie everything together. The second analogy, once again, this is what it's like. And it's keep the analogy simple. Keep the analogies simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. Remember, as communication goes, the best communicators take something very complex and simplify it for the rest of us. Your job is not to make the simple complex. Your job is to make the complex simple. And then, reminder again, tell what it's not, tell some of the elements of it, what happens, in this case, physiologically, and look at, again, the conditions. It happens not when they're practicing on the green or when they play a course. Tennis forehand shots, you can avoid it by looking away, describe it, limit it. All of those sorts of things are part of your definition. And so I hope I've made clear by going through these presentations that it's not just getting a definition, it's making an argument about why the definition is valid for more people than a standard definition or than a widely received definition. You're still making an argument. The definition is part and parcel of that argument. I think that wraps it up for now. I just had a case of the yips where I hit the mouse wrong. I hope it doesn't affect me in future slides. Hope everyone has a good day. If you have questions, please ask me in class.